morning, everybody. This is Sarah with Harrisburg Project. I'm going to give everybody a minute to get logged in. We're at about half right now, so we will wait a couple minutes. Since we're doing personnel today, we won't be here that long. Just personnel approvals. Remember, there's no claim with personnel, so pretty straightforward. So I will wait a minute or so and let everybody get logged in. In the meantime, I did not submit the notes until yesterday on our website. So you can go ahead and grab those from the handout section of your GoToWebinar menu, or you can get them. They are on our website now. So I was a little behind getting those posted. Fortunately for you, nothing has changed since last year. So really all I had to do was update the school year and a couple of screenshots that showed school year. So, you know, typically nothing new is good for all of us. So, okay. Wait just another minute here. Also, remember, if you have questions during the session, you can ask them in the questions pod in your GoToWebinar menu. GoToWebinar looks a little different now than it has in the past. So if you haven't been on with us in a while, it may look just a little bit different, but you should still have the same options. So again, ask your questions during the session. You don't have to hold them till the end. Okay, here we go. Now we're climbing a little bit. Sometimes those reminders don't pop up until right at the time. That's not always helpful. Okie doke. Looks like we're leveling out on our logins. So I will go ahead and get started. Again, you can grab your handout from your GoToWebinar menu, or you can get those on our website under trainings. All right, so personnel approvals. We still have plenty of time to work on these for the 25-26 school year. So I'm going to show you how you can get the instructions off our website. We'll go over the approvals, what the status codes mean, your error reports, a peek at our website, and then support. For the instructions, they're going to tell you that this year, once again, the personnel approvals are due on July 31st. So you have through the end of next month to work on those. Remember, it is only approvals. There is no personnel claim. And you're going to find those instructions on our website right in the center at the top under manuals and guides. It's going to be the second section. So it's going to show you the student instructions, student approval instructions, and then the personnel approval instructions. So again, no changes this year from last year, just updates for the school year throughout. So one way that you can determine the personnel that you may be missing in iStar would be to go to your unreported personnel tab. What that would show you is any personnel that you do not have entered in iStar already that show as having a special ed position code in the educator information system. So your district submits a file to the educator information system every year. And in that file, they will put position codes for what the role is for that employee. So if it appears that it is a special ed position code, they're going to show up on this list if you don't have them entered in iStar already. So this could be a helpful tool to show you if anyone in your district is missing from iStar Plus. So that's the first place you can start if you're unsure if you are missing any employees or not. Okay, so that's going to be under utilities, unreported personnel. And I think that is grouped a little bit differently now. They changed the grouping in utilities, but it's still under there. So where you will be working is going to be under Personnel Central. Now, Personnel Analytics is just like the Student Analytics. So if you needed to go do some data mining, then you can do that. But Personnel Central is where you will be working, putting in the data. Okay, so everyone in the unreported list has a special education position. It means that in EIS they have indicated that they are in special ed, that is their role. So it should mean that they're a related service provider, they're a teacher. If they have that type of a position and they're showing up there, then more than likely they should be in iStar Plus. If they are not working in those types of roles, then there's maybe a mistake in the EIS position code. Okay. All right. Yep. You're welcome. All right, in the unreported tab, if the special ed teacher moved to general ed in school year 25-26, should I still add? Absolutely not. You use your own discretion still. This just might be a clue to help you. If you know they weren't, if you know that they were not in special ed position code for this school year, they don't need to be in iStar. So again, on the unreported list, it's going to be people who have been uploaded in the educator information system by a district with a special ed position code. If you see multiple entries, it may be because they've worked for multiple districts in your jurisdiction. I have staff members that are not listed in iStar or in the unreported section. I still add them into iStar, correct? Yes, and we'll see what happens, because typically it's going to look over into EIS to make sure that they have that position code. So, I mean, if they are teaching special ed, if they are related service providers, all of those things, and you suspect they should be in iStar, then they should have been in EIS also. So, yes, I do want you to enter them, but we may encounter some errors after that if we can't match them up to EIS. So we do cross-check to make sure that that position code is in alignment. So if EIS has put them in as a general ed teacher, then we're going to give you a message in iStar that says, hey, this is not in alignment with what the other systems at ISB say. So it's kind of like on the student piece, where we don't necessarily take data from SIS for our enrollments, but we do match up to them. It's kind of the same concept here. Okay, are counselors to be added? I can't remember if there is a work assignment for counselors anymore or not. We'll look in the manual at the end for the counselors. I just can't remember off the top of my head if there is where they fall. Okay. All right. So under our Personnel Central, you're going to see some tools here similar to what student looks like. And we're going to see that the magnifying glass, again, universal in iStar Plus is your search. The plus is your add, and the check is to check errors. Okay. Okay. Entries are listing the same entity and district multiple times. Okay, that is weird. Not sure. Unless maybe they had multiple position codes in EIS. I don't know. That could be the case now that I think of it. Maybe they have multiple entries in EIS. Do you know, just looking at any of them, if they may serve multiple roles? Or is it just everybody is duplicated? Yeah, you can just let me know. Okay. So over on the right-hand side, we're going to see several different areas. The ones that we are really focused on right now are going to be your personnel approval data and the work assignment data. That's the mission critical operation to approvals. That is what we need to report. You can see the certificate data. It's just a copy of their Ellis record. You can't do anything with that. And you're going to see a line for salary data. But remember, for salary data, we're only entering that if this person is involved with an orphanage claim. If they are not involved with an orphanage claim, we do not need the salary. So the vast majority of your personnel will not have salary data entered. If you do not calculate claims or have orphans, then you will never deal with the salary data at all in personnel. Okay? All right. So for the personnel approval data, basically what we need to know is if that person worked on December 1st. So when you go in to add a new person, what I recommend is that you get their IEIN number to add them and search by that. So we're going to be looking at other ISB systems to locate this person. If they have a very common name, first name, last name is probably not a good idea. That's why I say if you're going to add somebody new, use the IEIN number when at all possible. So if you have a John Smith, it's going to be really hard to determine if you have the same John Smith. If you have a Sarah Nelly, I think I'm only one in the whole state. You're going to be able to find me pretty easily. So, you're going to know when you need the IEIN versus not. But the best way to know that you're adding the correct person is to have that identification number for them. So you're going to click search for that person and then add them. Once you find them, that was oh, sorry. I got ahead of myself. I thought that was a search screen. All right, so you're going to click the plus sign to add somebody new, and then you're going to search by IEIN. Or, again, you can do first name, last name, but I think it's harder to determine that it's the right person, again, if it's one of those common names. So IEIN, search. When you find that person, you just click to go ahead and add them, and it starts an approval record. And the first thing you're going to determine is, did they work on December 1st, and what is their work assignment? So you're going to add a work assignment. Most of your teachers, I just did a teacher because that's most common, is going to be your LBS. So if they are special ed teachers, this is where most of them will fall. You may have early childhood teachers that fall as an ECT, but you're also going to have those different categories where you're going to have your teachers, your paras, your related service providers. If you have a state approved director, then you can enter them as the DIR, okay? But they have to be the actual state approved director. All right. I'll show you how to run the error report at the end if you do have errors. So I got a couple questions built up over here. Let me make sure I'm getting everything. Okay, yeah. Okay, yep. So once you enter that work assignment, then you're going to be asked to enter in the FTE. So for most of these people that are full-time and work all year, you're going to select 1.0 from the drop down. For your paras, if they happen to split any of their time, or if they spend time in pre-K or K through 12, you're going to have to let the system know about that. So if it's someone who is a program aide, meaning they are essentially a one-to-one aide. So the PAs are going to be the program aides that help the kids with lunch, restroom. They are like the one-to-ones, okay? So they are not certified. So that's your program aides. So yes, it sounds really weird that the program aide definition is actually the one-to-one. But if they spend half the day with a pre-K student and half the day with a kindergartner, then you would have 2 work assignment entries for them, PA3 and a PA6, and then you would split their FTE, 0.5 and 0.5. So this is only going to happen if you have aides. You don't do this for your LBS teachers or your early childhood teachers or your related service providers. It's only with the paras that you will see these options. So if these are paras that are spending all day in first grade, they're only going to have 1 entry. They're going to be a PA6 with a 1.0 FTE. but we have to let the system know again which population and how much time they're with. So the program aide, again, that's your one-to-ones. They are not licensed. Your teachers aides, these are aides that are in the classroom. They are licensed. They provide instruction under the supervision of the teacher. NHAs are your non-certified health aides. Usually those are going to be your nurses that are not that don't hold an RN and the professional educator license. So for them to qualify as a school nurse work assignment, they have to hold both of those. So sometimes this is where your nurses will fall. Okay, the FTE is calculated based on the days worked. So if they were split between special ed, and I mean, if they're pre-K for all teachers, basically the question was, what if they are with special ed and regular ed kids? If they're in pre-K for all, they're a 1.0. They've worked all year. Okay, so this is what that drop down for FTE looks like. Again, you want them at a 1.0 if they worked all year. If you need to do the calculation, this is where you will find that. It's not by hours, it's by the days. If you see staff in your listing that were not employed at all during the year, then they would not have an FTE. So you would delete them out. That's correct. You do not want them in there if they did not work for you during the regular term. So it's 25-26 school year. If all of your paras are licensed, you can mark them as TAs. It's fine. Typically, we want you to go by the role that they serve, but if they are licensed, then you can mark them as TAs. The role is different though. So TAs are licensed. They are not typically they can do more than one-to-one, so they can help with instruction in the classroom. And yes, it's very confusing because the definition, the heading that is in the manual and in iStar and has always been that way makes no sense, because the program aide you would think would be your licensed teacher's aide, but the program aide is actually not licensed. So the program aide is the one-to-one and the TA does work with all the kids, yes. But the difference also is that to be a program aide, they don't have to hold the license. To be a teacher's aide, they have to hold the license. So there is a difference. Okay, if you can't get another district to cooperate, make sure, first of all, that you are contacting the right person. So you're going to look in the resources in iStar Plus and run the personnel report. So it's the personnel site contact report. So make sure that that's the person that you're contacting. If you still can't get anything out of them after a while, let us know and we can try to help as well. Yes, so if this calculation you would use if you have someone that's going to work less than the full year. And all paras do not have to have a para license, no. So they have to have training. They're different types of licenses. So let me rephrase that. Okay. So if we have someone marked as a teacher's aide and they are working in the program aide role with all Fund E student, will this impact the orphanage claim? No. have someone marked as a teacher's aide. So they are a licensed aide working in the program aide role. So they're a one-to-one, but they're licensed perfectly fine. They're overqualified, essentially. Okay. There's no benefit to coding all of them as a TA versus a PA. We're really just getting an FTE count. That's really what the goal of this is, and that's what's reported on to the feds is your FTE counts, basically as that in that category. So paras overall. All right, if personnel left after December 1st, should it be on the list? Yes. All of your regular term employees should be entered regardless of whether they were active on December 1st or not. But we do need to indicate that when entering them. I don't know that an LEA rep would fall. I don't know what an LEA rep would fall under. And then back to the school counselors. Yes, you do add them. I think they're an SC. And yes, most of the time your FTEs will be a 1.0. I think that typically your your teachers usually stick around. They're usually a 1.0, but maybe your paras, those may be the ones that aren't there all the time. But during the year, you may, things happen, but for the most part, a lot of these people should be a 1.0. Okay, so they're going to work for you all year. So also, I mentioned it already a couple of times, but on the personnel information, on the approval section, we need to make sure that this is toggled to yes if the employee worked on December 1st. Do we add psych, nurses, and OT and personnel? Yes. Related service providers? Yes. Nurses, to qualify for a school nurse, so SN work assignment, they have to hold a professional educator license and an RN. If they don't hold the Pell, then they will be an NHA. Pre-K teacher is usually an ECT or an LBS. I think your assistant principals that do special ed case management can be added as an A. If it's co-op staff, you won't add them. The co-op will report their staff members. So if you get PT and OT from a co-op, you do not put those staff members in. The co-op, again, will report their staff members. Now, when you do those A's for those principals, I think it's going to ask you for an area, a disability area. So we may have to help you with that. But they may not qualify. We just have to look at the credentials to see. So it's just, some of these are touchy. Some of them are just run of the mill. And then sometimes we have to look at the credentials to see if they're actually going to qualify, if they fall into the different areas. So, and as you can tell, those are the less common things that I get asked about, like a principal that's, doing some other role. And in smaller districts, we do see that where you wear many hats, but so they may or may not work out. Now, the main thing is your teachers, related service providers, your paras. Those are straightforward. I should have remembered counselors, but and that's the other thing about this is we only do it once a year. So a lot of people haven't started yet. And if you're one of those people, that's okay. We have claims and a lot of other important things going on right now. You add the teachers if they worked for you no matter what. Okay. You do not put co-op employees in as your employees. It's people that you employ. I don't think you put clinicians in, so you don't need to worry about those. If they're independent contractors and they have an IEIN number, then you can add them, but we can't make them get an IEIN number, so if not, you leave them off. I don't want to say that this doesn't affect your funding because down the road it does, okay? I mean, you have to report these staff members. You have to participate in this, but it's not a claim. Remember that, okay? So if you have 50 employees or 55, it's not going to make a difference in the amount of funding you're getting, okay? But we still have to report this to the feds. So essentially, it's just kind of like other counts that we take and things like that. Just because it doesn't directly affect your funding doesn't mean you just don't participate or that kind of thing. But I don't want people to stress like that, if, oh my gosh, I didn't know that I could add these people that are contractors and maybe I should have made them get IEIN numbers and all of that kind of thing. That's not where we're at. Okay. So just remember, that again, this is not connected to a claim. Yeah, if you have errors, they pop up on your records. Okay, it's going to tell you. You're going to see the red exclamation. So you're going to know if you have errors. Plus, we're going to look at the report. Director of special ed would be DIR, but they have to be a state approved director. So, and then do we add the AT? What's the AT? Assistive tech. I don't think so. I assume case managers would be teachers. So yes, you can add them as an LBS if they're a teacher. If they're participating in special ed and they're case managers and they hold the professional educator license and an LBS 1, then they will be entered in. Of course, remember, it's going to depend on that role that they have in the educator information system. So just because they hold something doesn't mean that's what they are doing. So you may have a lot of general ed teachers that are qualified to teach special ed. That doesn't mean that's what they're doing. So you have to think about what their role is as well. That's why it's a little bit touchy when we talk about those aides. Really, we want you to put in what their role is. But a lot of people want it to be known that they have all licensed aides. So, okay. Contractual staff, if they are privately contracted, work for a contracting company, like not the co-op is what I'm trying to say, then you can put them in if they have an IEIN number. You cannot force them to get one. So if they don't have an IEIN number, then you cannot put them in. You add all of your special ed personnel that fall into the options in the manual. We'll go back through the para codes at the end. We had somebody come in a little bit late, so I'll go through those at the end. All right. So again, special ed teacher, related service provider, paras, and admins. These are the different categories that we are providing. If they don't fall into this and there's not a work assignment available for them in the drop down that's in our manual, then you do not enter them. Okay? So in years past, we had a ton of work assignments. You reported everybody you can think of down to interns. It's not the same anymore. It's a very, very small list compared to the past. Okay, so this changed. It's been a while since this changed, but you know, we have to, or you only have to report what is in that manual. Yes, you report hospital tutors, HHI. Okay. All right, status codes. So it's very difficult to generate errors in iStar for personnel. You're going to see more warnings and than errors. So basically, if staff members are entered and you don't put an FTE in, you're going to get an error. If they do not match up, their position code doesn't match up to EIS, then you're going to get an error. But if they are not qualified for the position that you are reporting them for, you're going to get a warning. So that's kind of like disapproved, but not really, because we're still going to report those students or those personnel in our report. So there's a qualified and a not qualified section. Okay? So if you get a warning, more often than not, it's because of something with their credentials. So that's where you can go back. If you look at one of the slides at the beginning where we had the credentials section, that's where you can look there and see why they are coming back as disapproved. So you can call us. We'll help you as much as we can. We work in the regional superintendent's office. We're contracted through them. And so sometimes we go ask them for help too. So we'll do our best to help you figure out why somebody's not qualified. Sometimes we just can't figure it out, and that person's going to have to contact ISB. But we will try to help you. But we're still going to report them even if they're not qualified. Now, the next question I always get, which kind of bleeds over into student, is if they're not qualified, can they be attached to the program? And the answer is no. They have to be qualified for the orphanage claim. So that's in the school code. All right. So let me show you how to run the error report. And we'll go through the para codes again. Let me get logged in here. So I'm going to talk while I'm looking this up with the para codes. The PAs are your one-to-one aides. They do not necessarily have a license. They are qualified. Your teacher's aides are your classroom aides. They are certified. Your NHAs are typically going to be your school nurses that do not qualify as the SN for school nurse. To be SN, they have to hold not just an RN, but they also have to hold a professional educator license. So if they don't have both of those credentials and they're a school nurse, they're going to be an NHA. For the FTE, if they spend time with both pre-K and kindergarten kids, so the example was you have a program aide, which is a one-to-one. They spend the morning with the pre-K student and the afternoon with the kindergarten student. you would have 2 entries under work assignment for them, PA3 at 0.5 and PA6 at 0.5. Okay, it takes just a second to get logged in here. I'll show you while we're waiting. Right. If one person is not qualified, it doesn't affect your other staff. We look at them one by one. Okay, here's the personnel data collection and the list of work assignments is at the end. So it's about 2 pages of options, almost 2 pages that tells you who you can enter. So remember, these are people that you are employing or paying minus co-op employees. Okay. And then for the report, you're going to go to your reports. Of course, your type was going to be personnel. We only have one category, approvals. Your personnel errors listing is the second option. You can change your error type, but I would just leave it at all because, I mean, I think you would have mostly errors and not many warnings, but I think you want to see your warnings right off the bat. With student, I like to take those out at first and then put them back in later, but I would just go ahead and run all, and then you'll hit view report. So you'll be able to export it to CSV, run it as a PDF, all the same options. We don't do a huge call campaign for personnel. We're going to send emails, but we're not going to call everybody and say, you know, hey, get these people in, because at the same time, we're going to be really cracking down on orphanage claims because that's when those are due also. So we're really going to be helping everybody with those where, you know, you're getting 100% back. So that's where our focus will be, all the end of year stuff. So the personnel is important. We want you to get it in. But if you don't have staff members in, we don't know. So it's just kind of hard. You know, we can send you the error messages, but other than that, all we can say is, hey, remember to go put your staff in or delete people out that didn't work for you. And again, that's like an unknown for us. If there are people in there, it may look like it's done to us. So, all right. So, brand new director, previously a coordinator, who has questions on interpreter recording. Okay, yeah, I'll talk about it in just a minute. So, do we have any other questions? Yes, there's a report for all personnel. It's the first one. Okay, any other personnel questions? It's pretty straightforward, especially if you spend a lot of time with the student section. It's kind of like, is that it? Okay, I'll wait a few minutes. And then after that, we'll stop the recording and I will answer the non-related questions. There's a the unreported tab should help you with staff that are missing. But again, if you know that that's not right, don't add them anyway. It has to be people that actually worked in the 25-26 school year. Yeah, so you use your own judgment too. Oh, good question. Yeah. So I had a question about an overlap earlier, but what I didn't go into details. So yes, the FTE for a staff member overall, so in the whole state, cannot exceed 1.0. So if someone is asking you to lower your FTE, you need to do that because you're going to share that person. So maybe they're going to have a 0.6 and you can have a 0.4 or whatever. But again, it cannot exceed. So again, if you're seeing a general ed teacher that is under that unreported, that means that in EIS they were reported under a special ed code, under a special ed position code. If they did not really work, don't add them. So again, it's a tool. You don't have to use it. If you find that it's not reliable, then don't. But always use your discretion. Can you print the entire personnel report instead of going page by page? Yes. You hit the diskette. Let me find something that's blank here. Here. Okay. I don't have anything that is blank. Let me find a way to show you these buttons without. Darn. I can't find a way to show you these buttons without showing you real data. But when you run a report, you're going to see a little diskette with a drop down. You need to hit PDF and it'll open up the PDF and then you print it from there. You don't have to print these page by page. So send it to a PDF and then print from that. I don't know what the EIS FTE represents, so I can't answer if you can use that or not. Okay. All right, I'm going to stop the recording, but if you have questions on personnel, just let us know. If you want to hang on for other topics, then be my guest.